I came home on a Tuesday, same as any other Tuesday. The sun was dipping, painting the sky, orange and purple, over the rooftops of our quiet street. I pulled into the driveway, killed the engine and just sat for a second, enjoying the silence before the usual chaos of dinner, homework and bath time. That's when I noticed it. Sarah's car was gone. That wasn't unusual. She might have taken the kids to the park or to her sister's. But then I looked at the porch swing, the one she always left the kids' backpacks on. Empty. And the bikes, Liam's and Chloe's, not there. A tiny prickle of unease started in my gut. I walked into the house, calling out, "Hello, anyone home?" My voice echoed back too loud in the sudden quiet. The house felt empty, not just quiet, like a void. I walked through the living room, into the kitchen. No notes on the fridge, no half-eaten snacks. Just a clean counter, wiped down like she was leaving for a long trip. My heart started to beat faster, a frantic drum against my ribs. I checked the kids' rooms. Liam's bed was made, his Lego creations sitting perfectly on his desk. Chloe's stuffed animals were lined up on her pillow. No mess, no toys strewn about. Too neat. My throat tightened. This wasn't right. Sarah never left their rooms this tidy. I pulled out my phone, my fingers fumbling as I dialed Sarah. It rang twice, then went straight to voicemail. No custom message, just the default one. I tried again. Same result. Panic, cold and sharp, began to spread through my veins. I called her sister, then her best friend. No one had heard from her since morning. They sounded worried too, their voices tinged with confusion. My mind raced, picturing accidents, emergencies. But Sarah would call. She'd always call. I walked back into the living room, my eyes scanning for any clue. That's when I saw it. On the coffee table, next to the remote, was her phone. Sarah never left her phone at home. She was glued to it. That's when I knew something was terribly wrong. I picked it up, my thumb hovering over the screen. It was unlocked. I clicked on her messages, looking for recent conversations. My breath caught in my chest. There was a long thread with a contact simply labeled M. I scrolled up. The messages started months ago. Can't wait to see you. Thinking about you always. Miss your touch. My stomach lurched. M was Mark, her colleague, the one she said was just a friend. My eyes blurred as I scrolled further, past the sickening sweetness to the more recent messages. It's time. I can't do this anymore. I am coming over with the kids. Alex won't see it coming. A cold, dead calm settled over me. It wasn't an accident. It was planned. She had taken them. To him, my wife, my children, to her lover's house, the world tilted on its axis. The quiet of the house was no longer peaceful. It was deafening. It screamed of betrayal, of emptiness. My vision tunneled. I barely registered the next message popping up on her phone, from her sister, asking if she was okay. Then a new message notification flashed on my phone. It was from Sarah. I stared at the screen, a new wave of nausea hitting me. I knew what it would say before I even opened it. I opened it. It was short, brutal, like a knife twisting in a wound that was already bleeding out. I've taken the kids. We're at Mark's. Don't try to find us. It's over. The words seared into my brain. Don't try to find us. She meant me, her husband, the father of her children. I felt her laugh bubble, up dry and hollow. A manic, broken sound. She just left. No discussion, no fight, no goodbye. She took my kids, our kids, to her lover. And just like that, my life the one I thought I had, was gone, erased. I walked around the house, my own house, the house we bought together, painted together, filled with the sounds of our children. Now it was just walls, empty spaces, ghosts of laughter. My hands clenched into fists, trembling with a fury so potent it felt like a physical weight in my chest. She took everything that mattered. She took my family. She thought she could just walk away, leave me with nothing but the dust of a broken life. And that's when the thought, cold and clear as a winter night, solidified in my mind. If she took my family, if she took my children to her lover's house, then I would take something of hers, something big, something she valued. I would take the house, this house, her house too. The one she so carelessly abandoned. It would become mine, all mine. My eyes swept across the living room, the space where we'd watched movies, where Liam had taken his first steps, where Chloe had learned to crawl. The betrayal was so deep, so absolute, it was physically painful. It was a visceral ache in my bones, but beneath the pain, a steel resolve began to harden. She wanted a new life. Fine, she would have one. Without this house, without the comfort it represented, without the safety net, she took the kids. So I would take the house. It was the only thing I had left to fight. The only way to show her she couldn't just discard me, us, like old furniture. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. The fight had just begun. And I would fight for this house, for my children, for what was right. This empty house would be my weapon. The silence pressed in, but now it felt different. It wasn't just emptiness, it was anticipation. The calm before a storm. I stood in the middle of our living room, the setting sun painting long shadows through the windows, a silent witness to the end of one life and the beginning of another. And I knew, with absolute certainty, that she wouldn't see this coming. Not really. She thought she'd blindsided me. She had. But I was about to hit her back, hard, with the very thing she'd left behind. The house. It was more than just property. It was stability. It was roots. And she had ripped them up, carelessly, thoughtlessly. Now I would replant them, alone. And she would feel the absence. My first coherent thought, after the initial shock and the rage, was surprisingly mundane. The locks. She had a key. Mark might have a key. Anyone could just walk in. The very idea made my skin crawl. This house, once a sanctuary, now felt vulnerable, exposed. So, before anything else, before calling anyone else, before even processing the full weight of what had happened, I started securing my territory. I went to the garage, pulled out the toolbox, and found the new door handles with integrated locks that I'd bought months ago, but never got around to installing. It was a project for another weekend, a lazy Sunday. Now, it was an urgent mission. My hands, still trembling with a mix of fury and adrenaline, worked mechanically. Unscrew the old, slide in the new. The click of the bolt turning for the first time felt like a small victory. A symbolic barricade against the chaos she had unleashed. I went through every exterior door, the front, the back, the garage access. I even changed the lock on the sliding glass door to the patio. It took me a good hour, sweat beading on my forehead, my muscles aching with an unfamiliar tension. Each new lock was a small assertion of control, a tiny piece of my shattered world being put back together, brick by painstaking brick. Next, the documents. The house deed, the mortgage papers. Insurance policies. Our marriage certificate. The kids' birth certificates. All the things that defined our life on paper. I found them in our shared office, in a fireproof box. I took them out, meticulously checking each one. The house was indeed in both our names. My name first, then hers. That complicated things. It wasn't simply mine to take, it was ours. But she had left. She had abandoned her share. I held on to that thought, a lifeline in the churning sea of my emotions. I called Ben, my best friend since college. He answered on the second ring, his voice cheerful. "Hey man, what's up?" I took a deep breath, trying to steady my voice. "Ben, it's Sarah. She left. With the kids. To her lover's house." The words tumbled out, raw and ragged. There was a pause on the other end, a silence that spoke volumes. Then, "What? Are you serious? Alex, are you okay?" I wasn't. "But," I said, but I will be. I need your advice. Legal advice, if you know any lawyers. And I need to know what I can do about the house." I explained my intent. If she thinks she can just take my kids and abandon everything, I am taking the house. I am making it mine. Ben, bless him, didn't argue. He listened. He understood the primary need for control, for a counter-strike. "Okay, Alex. First thing, you need a lawyer. A good one. Family law. Immediately. Don't do anything else drastic until you talk to a lawyer. And document everything, every text, every date, everything." He promised to make some calls, get me a referral. His words were a grounding force. Don't do anything else drastic. But I already had. I had started packing Sarah's things. Not to destroy them, not out of malice, but to remove them. To make space, to erase her presence from the shared spaces. I went to our bedroom, a room that now felt like a foreign country. Her side of the closet still filled with her clothes, her shoes, her jewelry box on the dresser. I opened her dresser drawers. Perfume bottles, makeup, neatly folded clothes. I didn't throw them. I didn't smash them. I got out several large moving boxes. And I started packing. Each item was a memory. Her favorite blue dress, the scarf I bought her in Italy. Her wedding ring sitting on the nightstand, almost mocking me in its stillness. I picked it up. Cold, heavy. I put it in a small plastic baggie, then put that baggie into a box labeled Sarah's personal items. It felt like performing an autopsy on my own life, a surgical removal of a cancerous growth. It hurt. Every single item brought a fresh wave of grief and anger. But I kept going. It was a necessary step, to cleanse the house, to make it mine again. I didn't finish it all that night. It was too much. The emotional exhaustion was overwhelming. Collapsed onto the couch, the house silent except for the frantic beat of my own heart. The boxes of Sarah's life were stacked neatly in the corner of the living room, a stark monument to what was lost. The house, once a warm, inviting home, now felt like a sterile, empty museum, filled with the ghosts of a life that no longer existed. But it was mine. Or it would be. I laid there staring at the ceiling, picturing the kids, Liam and Chloe. Were they okay? Were they scared? Were they confused? The thought of them being with Mark, in his house, under his roof, made my blood boil. This wasn't just about Sarah, it was about them. My children. And this house, the one they knew, the one that was their anchor, was where they needed to be. I would fight for it. For them, the quiet house was no longer just a house. It was my last stand. My fortress, and I would defend it. tooth and nail until my children were back within its wall. The next morning, Ben sent me the name and number of a family law attorney, Miss Eliana Miller. Her office was downtown, sleek and modern. I sat across from her, the mahogany desk between us feeling like a vast ocean. She was sharp, her eyes missing nothing, her demeanor calm but firm. I laid out the whole story of the empty house, the text messages, the missing kids, the discovery of the affair, the immediate decision to secure the property. I even mentioned packing Sarah's things. Miss Miller listened, making notes. When I finished, she steepled her fingers, her gaze steady. "Mr. Harrison," she began, her voice even, "what your wife did, taking the children without your knowledge or consent, especially to an unapproved environment, is a significant issue. It's often referred to as parental abduction, though the severity depends on many factors, including intent to permanently deprive you of access. However, in family court, it shows poor judgment and disregard for co-parenting." I nodded, feeling a flicker of hope. "And the house. I want sole occupancy. I want her out of the deed eventually. I want it to be clear that this is my residence and the children's residence." She sighed a small, weary sound. "That's where it gets complicated, Mr. Harrison. Since the house is marital property, owned jointly, neither of you can simply take it from the other without a court order. If you changed the locks and excluded her, she could potentially call the police and claim unlawful exclusion from her own property. They might even order you to let her back in, or at least grant her access to her belongings." My heart sank. "So I can't just take it, even if she abandoned it?" "Not unilaterally, no. But we can petition the court for what's called exclusive use and possession of the marital home. This is a temporary order, granted by a judge, that allows one spouse to live in the home while the divorce proceedings are ongoing. It's often granted if here is a history of domestic violence, or if it's in the best interest of the children to maintain stability. Or if one spouse has truly abandoned the property and taken the children without cause." "She abandoned it," I repeated, feeling a surge of resolve. "She took the kids to her lover's house. She sent me a text telling me not to find them." "That's abandonment." Miss Miller nodded slowly. "That text message is crucial. It's evidence of her intent to leave and to remove the children without your agreement. We can argue that her actions created an unsafe or unstable environment for the children by moving them suddenly to an unknown household, and that the marital home represents stability. We can file an emergency motion for temporary custody and exclusive use of the home, arguing that it's necessary for the children's immediate well-being to be returned to their established residence and routine." Emergency motion. "Yes, we need to act quickly. The longer the children are with her, the more status quo her new situation becomes. We want them back in their home with you as quickly as possible." "This will be an uphill battle, Mr. Harrison. She will likely claim you are being vindictive or unstable. She might even accuse you of preventing her access to her children, despite her text message." "I understand," I said, my jaw tight. "What do I need to do?" "First, you need to continue documenting everything. Every communication, every date, every specific detail. Did you try to contact her after the text to discuss the children? Did she respond? Has she tried to contact you about the children? Keep a log. Second, do not provoke her. Do not harass her or Mark. Do not go to their house. Let us handle the legal side. Third, we need to file the necessary paperwork immediately. This will require some detailed declarations from you. I left Miss Miller's office feeling a strange mix of dread and empowerment. Dreaded the long, ugly legal road ahead. Empowerment at having a plan, a legal weapon. This wasn't just about raw anger anymore. It was about strategy. It was about justice. I spent the rest of the day meticulously compiling everything. The text messages. My call log showing attempts to reach Sarah. A timeline of events. Photographs of the empty house. The packed boxes of her belongings, showing I hadn't destroyed them, just removed them. I even wrote a detailed account of coming home that Tuesday. The growing dread, the moment I read her message. Every word was painful, a reliving of the worst day of my life. But it was necessary. The house, still silent around me, felt less like a tomb and more like a besieged castle. I was the lone defender, preparing for battle. The quiet was still unsettling, but it was also a canvas. A blank slate waiting to be filled with the sounds of my children again. That thought, the image of Liam and Chloe running through these halls, was the only thing that kept me going. This wasn't just about a fight over property. It was about fighting for my family, for the remnants of my shattered life. And I would fight with every fiber of my being. A few days later, my phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number. I hesitated, then answered. "Hello, Alex." Her voice was cold, clipped Sarah. My heart hammered against my ribs, a sudden frantic rhythm. I hadn't heard from her since that brutal text. I expected begging, regret, or maybe an explanation. Instead, I heard anger. "Where are my things? Why did you change the locks?" She didn't ask about the kids, not first. She asked about her stuff. My resolve hardened. "They're packed, Sarah, in boxes, in the living room." My voice was calm, steady, surprising even myself. "You left them. You left the kids. You left the house. You don't get to come back and pick and choose." A sharp intake of breath. "I left you, Alex. Not the kids, not the house. This is my house too. You can't just lock me out. That's illegal. I'll call the police." "You already left," I said, letting the words hang in the air, heavy with meaning. "You took the kids to your lover's house. You sent me a text message saying you were at Mark's and I shouldn't try to find you." That's abandonment, Sarah. And of your responsibilities as a parent, frankly. "Don't you dare," she hissed, her voice rising. "Don't you dare talk about my responsibilities. I took them because I couldn't stand being there with you anymore. I took them to a safe place, a happy place. A happy place with Mark, the man you've been sleeping with, behind my back for months, while I was working my ass off for our family, for this house." The words spilled out, bitter and scalding. "You call that a safe place for our children, to introduce them to your affair partner immediately, without even having the decency to tell me it was over first." There was a pause, a crackle of static. "Then, that's none of your business. My relationship with Mark is private. came my business the second you involved my children. The second you moved them out of their home without a word. The second you chose him over us. My voice was rising now, the calm facade cracking. You took them, Sarah. You just took them. So I took the house. It's simple. You wanted a new life. Go live it. But not here. Not with what's left of our life. You are insane, Alex. You are completely unhinged. You think you can just do this. You think you can just take everything. I'll fight you. I'll fight you for that house. I'll fight you for the kids. You won't get away with this. Her voice was shrill, laced with panic and fury. I am not the one who walked out, Sarah. I am not the one who broke our vows. I am not the one who subjected our children to this mess. You did. And now, you'll face the consequences. I paused, taking a breath. I filed for temporary exclusive use of the marital home, and I filed for temporary primary custody of Liam and Chloe. My lawyer will be in touch. Don't try to come back to the house. The locks are changed. All of your things are in boxes. You can arrange for a supervised pickup through our lawyers. A gasp on the other end. You filed. You actually filed, you manipulative bastard. I am protecting my children, Sarah, and our home. You made your choice. Now I am making mine. My voice was cold, empty of emotion. Is there anything else, or can I hang up now? I hate you, she spat, the words dripping with venom. I hate you, Alex. You'll regret this. I swear to God, you'll regret this. I regret a lot of things right now, Sarah. Mostly I regret ever trusting you. And with that, I hung up. My hand was shaking as I lowered the phone. A hollow victory. Conversation had been brutal, but it confirmed my resolve. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't remorseful. She was angry that I hadn't crumbled, that I hadn't begged, that I had taken action. She was angry that I was fighting back. I immediately called Miss Miller. She just called. She's furious. I told her I filed. She threatened me. Miss Miller's voice was calm. Good. That's actually helpful. It shows her true colors and her intent. Document the call. Date. Time. What was said. This is precisely why we moved quickly. She's reacting, not thinking. We're on the offensive, Mr. Harrison. Keep strong. I walked around the house, the phone conversation replaying in my mind. Her anger. Her lack of concern for the kids beyond her own justification. It fueled my determination. This wasn't just about me and Sarah anymore. It was about Liam and Chloe. They deserved stability. They deserved a parent who put their needs first. And right now that parent was me. Quiet House felt less like an empty shell and more like a sanctuary under siege. I had fired the first shot in this new, terrifying war, and there was no turning back. The next few weeks were a blur of legal documents, calls with Miss Miller, and a crushing sense of isolation. Word of Sarah's departure and my subsequent actions spread like wildfire through our mutual friends and family. It was a small town, and gossip traveled fast. The reactions were varied and often painful. Some friends like Ben stood by me without question. They offered quiet support, meals, a listening ear. She made her bed, Alex, Ben said simply. Over coffee one morning. You are doing what you have to do. These friends were a lifeline anchoring me when I felt myself drifting into despair. But others were less understanding. Sarah had her own circle and her own version of events. I heard through the grapevine that she was painting me as a controlling, angry husband who had driven her away. She claimed she had to escape with the kids, that I was abusive in some vague, undefined way. It was a gut punch every time I heard it. Eyes designed to undermine my credibility, and justify her reckless actions. My own family, my parents and sister, were heartbroken. They rallied around me, but their grief over the shattered family unit was palpable. "How could she do this to you? To the children?" my mother cried on the phone, her voice thick with tears. It was hard to comfort them when I could barely comfort myself. Then there were the mutual acquaintances, the ones who didn't know the full story, or chose to believe the more dramatic version. I received judgmental looks at the grocery store, saw people whispering when I walked past. Some even outright asked, "Is it true what Sarah's saying, that you locked her out of her own house?" I had to constantly explain, to defend, to justify. She took the children to her lover's house. Without a word, I secured the home to protect my kids and our assets. It felt like screaming into a void. It was exhausting. The hardest part, though, was not having the kids. Every morning I woke up to a silent house, a crushing weight in my chest. No little feet pattering down the hall, no demands for breakfast, no drawings stuck to the fridge. The empty bedrooms mocked me. I missed their laughter, their questions, their very presence. It was a physical ache, a constant phantom limb pain. Miss Miller had filed the emergency motion for temporary custody and exclusive use of the home. Sarah, through her own lawyer, fired back with a counter motion, accusing me of parental alienation and claiming the house was rightfully hers as well. It was a nasty, drawn-out process involving affidavits and depositions. I had to detail every painful moment of Sarah's betrayal, every lie. It felt like tearing open my own wounds again and again. One afternoon, a letter arrived from Sarah's lawyer, a formal cease and desist, ordering me to stop all contact with Sarah and Mark, and to allow Sarah access to her personal belongings in the house. Miss Miller advised me to acknowledge receipt, but to stand firm. She can arrange to pick up her things through us, supervised. No direct contact. It was another skirmish in the war. To cope with the immense stress, Miss Miller suggested I talk to a therapist. I resisted at first. I was fine. I was strong. But the sleepless nights, the constant anxiety, the flashes of anger that threatened to consume me, they told a different story. I reluctantly made an appointment. Dr. Evelyn Reed was kind, calm, and listened without judgment. She didn't tell me what to do, but she helped me process the tidal wave of emotions. She helped me separate the justified anger from the crippling grief. The house, my fortress, was also my prison. I spent most evenings there alone, trying to fill the silence with the television, with music, with work. But the quiet always seeped in. I walked through the rooms, remembering family dinners, birthday parties, quiet evenings reading to the kids before bed. No, those memories were tainted, painful reminders of what was lost. The house was clean, orderly, but it felt cold. It desperately needed the warmth of my children's presence. I knew this was a long game. The initial shock had worn off, replaced by a grim determination. I was fighting for my kids, for their stability, for their right to grow up in the home they knew. And if taking the house was the most direct way to achieve that, then I would take it and hold it until they could return. The loneliness was immense, a heavy cloak I wore constant, but the thought of Liam and Chloe, confused and likely scared, fueled my resolve. This wasn't for me anymore, it was for them. The legal machinery for custody and home occupancy was grinding forward, slowly but relentlessly. Miss Miller was a bulldog, meticulously building our case. Sarah, through her lawyer, continued to fight back, escalating the accusation. Kids were caught in the middle, and that was the most heartbreaking part of it all. Our first court date for temporary custody and exclusive use of the home was set. The day before, a guardian ad litem was appointed, a court-appointed individual whose role was to represent the best interests of the children. It meant Liam and Chloe would be interviewed, their preferences considered, their experience weighed. The thought of them having to talk about their parents, about being uprooted, filled me with dread. Then came the supervised visit. The first time I would see my children since Sarah took. The court had ordered it, a few hours at a neutral location, supervised by a professional. My stomach was a knot of nerves and anticipation. I practiced what I would say to them, how I would reassure them without bad-mouthing their mother. When I walked into the visitation center, Liam and Chloe were already there, sitting quietly at a small table, drawing with crayons. Liam, my usually boisterous 9-year-old, looked subdued. Chloe, my bright 5-year-old, had a faraway look in her eyes. My heart twisted. I knelt down, opening my arms. "Hey guys," I said, my voice thick with emotion. They ran into my arms, hugging me tight. Liam buried his face in my shoulder. Chloe clung to my leg. The scent of them, familiar and comforting, almost brought me to my knees. "Daddy," Chloe whispered, her voice tiny. "When are we coming home?" Liam looked up at me, his eyes wide with confusion. "Why are we at Aunt Sarah's house, Dad? Mom said we are staying there now. Is it true?" My throat tightened. I hugged them tight. "No, sweethearts. This is still your home. Your real home is waiting for you. I am fighting very hard to bring you back there. And I miss you both so much." I spent the next few hours with them, playing games, reading books, trying to make it as normal as possible. But the supervisor was always there, taking notes. Liam kept asking questions about their toys, their rooms. Chloe asked for her favorite blanket, which was still in her bed at our house. My heart broke a little more with each question. I explained simply that Mom needed some time, that things were a little confusing right now, that Daddy was making sure they would be safe and happy. I didn't badmouth Sarah. I bit my tongue, swallowed my anger, and focused solely on their confusion and fear. I told them how much I loved them, how much I missed them, and that I was doing everything I could to get them back to their home. Leaving them was agonizing. Chloe cried, clinging to me. Liam looked on the verge of tears too. "Daddy, please," he begged. I had to pry their small hands from me, promising I'd see them again very soon, that I was working on it. Walking out of that center, leaving my children behind, felt like the ultimate punishment. The house, my fortress, felt like a hollow victory when they weren't in it. Back home, the silence was deafening. The ache was physical. I sat in Liam's room, then Chloe's, touching their untouched belongings. Their bedspreads, their books, their favorite stuffed animals. They were here, waiting for them. But they weren't. The next day, Miss Miller was preparing our final filings for the temporary hearing. Their time with Sarah in an unfamiliar setting, away from their routine, strengthens our argument for stability, Mr. Harrison. Your calm demeanor with them, your focus on their well-being. It all helps. The guardian ad litem will see that. I hope so. More than anything, I hope so. This whole situation was tearing me apart. But the thought of my children's confusion, their sadness, that was the true breaking point. I had to bring them home. This house was their home, and I would fight to the bitter end to get them back inside it. The battle for the house was truly a battle for my children's future. As the temporary hearing approached, the legal discovery process continued, uncovering more details about Sarah's affair and her intentions. Some of it, I wish I hadn't known. It was like peeling back layers of a festering wound. Miss Miller's team, with court-ordered access to Sarah's phone records and some of Mark's, unearthed a series of text messages and emails that went back far longer than I had initially suspected. It wasn't just a sudden fling. It had been going on for over a year. A calculated, ongoing deception. They had planned their escape, detailing it in coded messages, talking about phase 1 and the big move. One email sent from Sarah to Mark a few weeks before she left chillingly laid out her thinking. I can't tell Alex. He'll make it messy. It's better if I just go. Take the kids. He won't know what hit him. He's too focused on work. He won't fight me on the house. He's too soft. We can sell it quickly, split the equity and use it for our new life. My blood ran cold when Miss Miller showed me that email. He's too soft. She thought I wouldn't fight. She thought I'd just roll over. That I'd hand her half of our assets, half of our life, to fund her new life with her love. The depth of her manipulative planning, her callous disregard for my feelings for the children's well-being, was truly sickening. It wasn't just about love or passion. It was about strategy, about assets. This revelation, while gut-wrenching, also solidified my resolve. It wasn't just about anger anymore. It was about protecting my children from a mother who viewed our shared home as a financial tool, and me as an obstacle to be bypassed. It wasn't a crime of passion. It was a calculated abandonment. We also discovered that Mark, the supposed successful colleague, had some financial troubles of his own. He was deeply in debt, and Sarah had secretly been lending him money, often from our joint savings account. This added another layer of betrayal. She wasn't just leaving for love. She was potentially being manipulated, or was willingly getting involved in something financially precarious, putting our family's future at risk. Miss Miller adjusted our strategy. This email changes everything, Mr. Harrison. It demonstrates premeditation, intent to deceive, and a clear plan to deprive you of the children and assets. It shows she had no intention of a peaceful separation or co-parenting. Her claim that you are controlling or abusive falls flat when we show the judge this evidence of her calculated actions. She also advised me to maintain absolutely no direct contact with Sarah. Her goal is to provoke you, to get you to react badly, so she can use it against you. Don't give her that satisfaction. I saw Sarah a few times during this period. Briefly, always from a distance, during court-ordered exchanges of children's belongings, arranged by the guardian ad litem, not direct contact. She looked thinner, stressed. Her eyes, whenever they met mine, held a mixture of anger and something else, fear perhaps. The confident facade was cracking. Her new life with Mark probably wasn't as perfect as she'd envisioned. The grass wasn't always greener, especially when watered with deceit. Children, during their supervised visits, were still confused, but they seemed to be settling into a fragile routine. Liam was asking more questions, more direct ones, about why Mom was with Mark. Chloe still just wanted to be home. Tried my best to answer without lying, but also without dumping my adult problems on them. Mom needed a change, but this house, our house, is still your home, and I am working hard to get us all back here. The revelations fueled my determination. This wasn't about bitterness anymore. It was about protecting my kids from the fallout of Sarah's destructive choice. It was about securing their stability, their familiar home, and showing them that despite all the chaos, one parent was still there, fighting for them. Too soft, she had written. I would show her just how wrong she was. The house, our home, would be my proof. It would be my children's anchor, and it would be secured. The day of the temporary hearing arrived. I wore my best suit, my nerves a tangled knot in my stomach. The courtroom was formal, imposing. Miss Miller was beside me, calm and collected, her presence a steadying force. Sarah sat at the opposing table, flanked by her lawyer, her face pale and drawn. She avoided my gaze. The judge, Judge Reynolds, was a stern-faced woman who commanded respect. She listened intently as Miss Miller began our presentation. Miss Miller laid out the timeline. My coming home to an empty house. The chilling text message from Sarah, confirming her departure with the children to Mark's house. The immediate steps I took to secure the marital home, and my prompt filing for emergency custody and exclusive use. She presented the damning email from Sarah to Mark, detailing her intent to deceive, her plan to just go and take the kids, and her belief that I was too soft to fight for the house. Your Honor, Miss Miller stated clearly, this evidence demonstrates a calculated, premeditated abandonment of the marital home and an attempt to deprive my client of his children and assets. It shows a complete disregard for the well-being and stability of the children, uprooting them without warning or discussion. Sarah's lawyer countered, trying to paint me as an angry, controlling spouse who had driven Sarah away. She claimed I had overreacted, illegally locked Sarah out of her own home, and was now attempting to alienate the children from their mother. She argued that Sarah had merely sought refuge and stability in a new environment for herself and the children, and that the children were happy and well adjusted with their mother. Then it was my turn to testify. I walked to the witness stand, took the oath, and sat down. My voice, though a little shaky at first, grew stronger as I spoke. I recounted the day I found the house empty, the sickening realization of betrayal, the text message. I explained my immediate concern for my children's safety and stability, and my decision to secure their home, the only place that was truly theirs. I didn't react with anger, Your Honor, I stated, looking directly at the judge. I reacted with fear. Fear for my children, who were suddenly gone, taken by their mother to a place I didn't know, with a man I didn't know. My priority was always their safety and their well-being. This house, their home, is where they belong. It's their anchor, their routine. My only goal was to bring them back to stability. I explained that I had packed Sarah's belongings carefully, not destroyed them, and had always offered to arrange for their pickup through legal channels. I spoke about the pain of not seeing my children, the emptiness of the house, and my desperate longing for them to return to their familiar surroundings. Sarah also testified. She portrayed herself as a victim, a woman driven to desperation by an unhappy marriage. She claimed I was emotionally distant, controlling, and that she felt she had no choice but to leave for her own sanity and the children's happiness. She denied that the affair was premeditated, saying it was a sudden realization of love. But under cross-examination by Miss Miller, she stumbled, contradicting earlier statements, especially when confronted with her own emails and text messages detailing the long-term planning and financial aspects with Mark. She became defensive, angry, accusing me of lying and fabricating evidence. The guardian ad litem then presented her finding. She spoke about the children's confusion, their desire to be back in their own home, their routines being disrupted. She noted Liam's questions about their father and his obvious longing for his room and toys. She noted Chloe's sadness and her repeated request for her own bed. While she didn't assign blame directly, her report clearly emphasized the importance of stability and continuity for the children, and indicated that the sudden move to Mark's house was unsettling for them. The arguments went back and forth for hours. The air in the courtroom was thick with tension. I felt emotionally drained, but also a fierce sense of purpose. This wasn't just about winning a legal battle. It was about proving to my children and to myself that I was fighting for them, for their home, for their future. The judge listened, asked a few pointed questions of both parties, her expression unreadable. Finally, she called for a brief recess before rendering her decision. My heart pounded in my chest, a drumbeat of anxiety and hope. After what felt like an eternity, the judge returned. The courtroom fell silent. Judge Reynolds looked at both tables, then spoke, her voice clear and firm. This court has reviewed the petitions for temporary exclusive use of the marital home and temporary custody of the minor children, Liam and Chloe Harrison. We have heard testimony from both parents and considered the report of the guardian ad litem. My breath hitched in my throat. This was it. Court finds that Miss Harrison's actions in unilaterally removing the children from the marital home and relocating them to an undisclosed location with a third party, and her subsequent communication indicating she did not wish to be found, were irresponsible and demonstrated a profound lack of consideration for the children's well-being and stability. A small gasp from Sarah's side of the room. I felt a surge of relief, followed by a deeper sense of vindication. Furthermore, the documentary evidence presented, specifically the communications between Miss Harrison and the third party. Mr. Mark Stevenson suggests a premeditated plan to abandon the marital home and the established family unit, and to deprive Mr. Harrison of access to his children and assets. The court notes Ms. Harrison's own written statements regarding her intent to just go and her assessment of Mr. Harrison as too soft to fight for the property. My eyes flickered to Sarah. Her face was ashen. While the court does not condone Mr. Harrison's decision to change the locks without a prior court order, it does acknowledge the extreme circumstances that led to this action, namely the sudden disappearance of his children and wife, and the subsequent message telling him not to find them. His subsequent actions to secure the property and immediately seek legal remedy demonstrate a responsible approach to a crisis. Therefore, it is the order of this court that Mr. Alex Harrison is hereby granted temporary exclusive use and possession of the marital home, located at address. Miss Sarah Harrison is ordered to vacate the premises immediately, and shall not return without a further court order. Her personal belongings, already packed, shall be retrieved under supervised conditions arranged by counsel. A wave of relief washed over me so strong I felt lightheaded. I had the house. My stance, my fight, had been validated. Regarding the minor children, Liam and Chloe Harrison, the judge continued, the court finds that their best interests are served by maintaining stability and routine. Their sudden relocation by Miss Harrison has caused them distress and confusion. Therefore, effective immediately, temporary primary physical custody of Liam and Chloe Harrison is awarded to Mr. Alex Harrison. Miss Sarah Harrison shall have supervised visitation with the children on specific days, times, until further order of the court, or until such time as Miss Harrison can demonstrate a stable and appropriate environment for unsupervised visitation. Tears welled in my eyes. Not tears of sadness, but of overwhelming relief and gratitude. My children, they were coming home. It wasn't full custody yet, but it was primary, and it meant they would be back in their beds, in their rooms, in their home. Sarah erupted. No, you can't. That's not fair. My kids. Her lawyer quickly put a hand on her arm, whispering it urgently. But her outburst only seemed to confirm the judge's assessment of her stability. Order in the court, Miss Harrison, Judge Reynolds said sharp. This is a temporary order based on the evidence presented and the children's best interests. This court will not tolerate outbursts. You are strongly advised to cooperate with this order and your counsel to work towards a more permanent resolution. The judge hammered her gavel. Case adjourned. Outside the courtroom, Miss Miller shook my hand. a rare smile on her face. A strong win, Mr. Harrison. Not full victory yet, but it sets the stage for permanent custody and the house in the divorce. I could barely speak. All I could think of was Liam and Chloe coming home to their rooms, to their toys, to their dad. The house, my empty, silent fortress, would soon be filled with the sounds of my children again. It was a partial victory, a temporary measure, but it felt like everything. It felt like a new beginning. The first step towards rebuilding a life that was almost completely shattered. I hadn't just taken the house, I had taken back hope. The next few months were a whirlwind, a delicate dance of legal proceedings and emotional rebuild. Temporary order stood. I had exclusive use of the house, and Liam and Chloe were back with me in their home. The day Liam and Chloe came back for good, after the court order was official, was surreal. They had brought their meager belongings from Mark's house in small backpacks. Walking them through the front door, into their familiar living room, felt like breathing again after a long suffocation. Chloe ran straight to her room, giggling as she jumped on her bed. Liam went to his, methodically checking on his Lego creations. They were home. It was chaotic, noisy, and absolutely perfect. The house slowly began to shed its skin as a battleground and re-emerge as a home. The echoes of silence were replaced by children's laughter, the clatter of toys, the familiar rhythm of family life. We started new traditions, small things. Pizza night on Fridays, movie nights with popcorn, reading books together on the couch. I learned to cook more than just basic meals, spurred by Liam's request for his favorite dishes. I helped Chloe with her kindergarten homework, patient even when my own exhaustion threatened to overwhelm. The divorce itself was, as Miss Miller predicted, contentious. Sarah fought hard for more access for the house, for alimony. But the temporary order had set a strong precedent. The email, her documented abandonment, and her initial reckless behavior weighed heavily against her. Court also took into account Mark's questionable financial situation and the instability of the environment she had taken the children into. Ultimately, after many more painful court dates and negotiations, the final decree came through. I was granted primary physical custody of Liam and Chloe, with Sarah having structured, supervised visitation that could become unsupervised after a period of demonstrated stability and therapy. The marital home was awarded to me as part of the asset division, balancing it out with other assets. It was a hard-won victory emotionally and financially. Sarah eventually moved out of Mark's house, their relationship apparently crumbling under the weight of the legal battles and his own issues. I heard she moved to an apartment in a neighboring town, started a new job. She seemed to disappear from our lives, becoming a distant figure, a scheduled visitation. I often walked through the house, marveling at how different it felt. It wasn't just a physical structure anymore. It was a symbol of resilience, of fighting for what was right, for what mattered most. It was no longer a place of betrayal, but a foundation for a new beginning. I was a different man. Trauma of Sarah's betrayal had changed me, hardened me in some ways, but also made me more keenly aware of the preciousness of life, of family. I learned to be a single father, leaning on Ben, my parents, and newfound friends for support. I continued seeing Dr. Reed, processing the lingering pain, working through the grief, learning to trust again, albeit cautiously. Liam and Chloe thrived. They were resilient, adapting to their new normal, secure in their home and their father's love. We talked about their feelings, about the changes, openly and honestly within their understanding. They knew their home was a safe place, filled with love and stability. There were still hard days. Days when the loneliness crept in, when I missed the idea of the family I thought I had. But then I would hear Chloe's laughter from the backyard, or Liam explaining his latest Lego creation, and the shadows would recede. The house. It was more than just walls and a roof. It was our home. And when my wife took the kids to her lover's house, leaving me with nothing, I took the house. I secured it. I fought for it. And in doing so, I didn't just win a property dispute. I won back my children. I won back my future. And I started to heal. The hearth, once cold and broken, slowly began to glow again. Not with the fire of anger, but with the warmth of a new, resilient kind of love.